Right now, more than 16 billion miles from where you are sitting, a machine built in 1977 is either about to get a second chance or it is not, and nobody on Earth can tell you which yet. Not because the answer is a secret. Because the answer is currently traveling toward us at the speed of light, across a distance so vast that even light itself needs the better part of a day to cover it. There is no live feed to check, no dashboard anyone can refresh for an update. Somewhere between a control room in Southern California and a spacecraft older than most of the people currently monitoring it, a single sequence of commands is either working exactly as intended or it is not, and the answer is simply still in transit. This is not a story about Voyager 1 going silent. It is still talking. It is still working. But it is standing right now at the edge of one of the most consequential engineering decisions its mission has ever faced, and the outcome has not been made public yet. To understand why this particular moment matters so much, you have to understand exactly how precarious things have become for the most distant human-made object in existence. Voyager 1 launched on September 5th, 1977, on a mission originally expected to last 4 or 5 years, flying past Jupiter and Saturn before quietly finishing its work. Instead, it kept going. In 2012, it became the first spacecraft in history to cross the heliopause and enter true interstellar space, and it has been transmitting from that region, a place no other human instrument has ever occupied, for well over a decade now. It is currently sitting at a distance of roughly 4 billion kilometers from Earth, close to 16 billion miles, moving farther away with every second that passes. The problem is power, and it is a problem with no fix, only delay. Voyager 1 runs on radioisotope thermoelectric generators, devices that convert the heat given off by decaying plutonium into electricity. That power output has been shrinking every single year since launch by roughly 4 watts annually permanently, with absolutely no way to add more. There is no sunlight this far out for solar panels to capture. There's no way to send fuel or a battery or a technician across a gap this size. Every watt the spacecraft has today is less than it had last year, and that will remain true for as long as it keeps flying. Before any of that decline set in, though, Voyager 1 had already earned its place in the history of exploration several times over. At Jupiter, in March 1979, it returned the first close-up images of the planet's swirling great red spot and discovered active volcanoes erupting on the moon Io, the first confirmed volcanic activity ever found anywhere beyond Earth. At Saturn, in November 1980, it captured detailed views of the planet's rings and its hazy moon Titan, observations so valuable that mission planners deliberately bent the spacecraft's trajectory to get a closer look, a decision that permanently ended any chance of Voyager 1 ever visiting another planet afterward. And then, on February 14, 1990, already well past Neptune's orbit and with nothing left to photograph, the mission team did something that had nothing to do with new science at all. At the urging of astronomer Carl Sagan, they turned Voyager 1's camera around back toward the tiny, distant light of home and took one final photograph before the camera was switched off for good. In that image, Earth appears as a single pale blue dot, less than a pixel wide, suspended in a scattered ray of sunlight, the entire history of every human being who has ever lived, captured in a point of light smaller than a speck of dust. Sagan later wrote about that image at length, describing it as a reminder of how small and fragile our world truly looks from far enough away, a sentiment that has followed this particular spacecraft ever since, long after its cameras went dark. For years, NASA's answer to that shrinking power supply has been the same painful strategy, repeated instrument by instrument. As available electricity drops, engineers shut something down permanently, choosing carefully what to sacrifice and what to keep running as long as possible. And on April 17th of this year, they made one of the harder calls on that list. They shut down Voyager 1's low-energy charged particles experiment, an instrument known as LECP, that had been running almost without interruption since the spacecraft launched in 1977, measuring the ions, electrons, and cosmic rays in the space immediately around it. Matt Hill, the instrument's principal investigator at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, has described what that instrument actually gave us, writing that LECP was how scientists uncovered the behavior of cosmic rays and solar particles, and how they sensed the exact moment Voyager crossed from our solar system into the space between the stars. That is not a small loss. It is one of the tools that first proved humanity had actually left home. Bolted to Voyager 1's frame, riding alongside all of this, is something that has nothing to do with whether any instrument stays on or goes dark. The Voyager Golden Record, a gold-plated copper disc, carries greetings recorded in 55 human languages, natural sounds of Earth, including rain, wind, and ocean waves, 90 minutes of music selected from cultures spanning the length of recorded human history, and a set of diagrams intended to explain who sent it and where in the galaxy it came from. Unlike every scientific instrument on board, the record does not need power to keep existing. It will still be riding along, completely intact, long after the last watt of electricity is drained from the spacecraft's generators, long after the final signal has made its lonely one-way trip back to an Earth that may no longer be listening for it. Whatever the Big Bang decides about which instruments keep gathering data, the record itself is already permanent, the one part of this entire mission that was never actually at risk in any of these power calculations to begin with. Shutting it down was never meant to be the end of the story, though. It was meant to buy time, specifically so engineers could attempt something NASA is calling, quite literally, the Big Bang, a coordinated, one-time swap of several onboard systems, switching off a handful of higher power heaters that keep the spacecraft's thruster fuel lines from freezing, and switching on lower power alternatives designed to do the same job using meaningfully less electricity. If it works exactly as planned, it could free up enough power to delay the next forced shutdown by at least a year on each spacecraft, and there's even a real, if slim, chance it could let engineers switch LECP back on. Engineers have reportedly kept a small motor tied to the instrument quietly running, specifically to preserve that option, rather than fully closing the door on it, because nobody has ever attempted a maneuver quite like this on hardware nearly 50 years old. NASA chose not to risk it first on Voyager 1. Voyager 2 currently has a slightly larger power margin, and it also sits closer to Earth, meaning commands reach it faster and responses come back sooner, shaving precious hours off every single test cycle. Both of those small advantages made Voyager 2 the safer choice to go first, even though the ultimate goal, restoring LECP, matters most for Voyager 1, where the instrument has already been switched off and where the loss is freshest. NASA ran the Big Bang tests on Voyager 2 across May and June of this year. If those tests held up, the plan was always to attempt the identical maneuver on Voyager 1 no earlier than July, this month, right now, on the spacecraft, currently sitting farthest from Earth of anything humanity has ever built. That is exactly where this story stands as you're watching it. There is no confirmed published outcome yet showing whether Voyager 1's attempt has already happened, is happening as you read this, or is still being finalized on the ground. That gap is not neglect, and it is not NASA hiding bad news. It is simply how communication at this distance actually works. A command sent to Voyager 1 takes close to 20 hours just to arrive. Confirmation that it was received, and any resulting change in the spacecraft's behavior, takes another stretch of nearly a day to travel back. A single full exchange, question and answer again if something looks off, can eat up the better part of 2 days before engineers even know whether the first attempt succeeded. This is not a maneuver you execute and confirm in an afternoon. It is a maneuver you commit to and then wait for, patiently, the same way this entire mission has operated since the moment it launched. To put that delay in terms that are easier to actually feel, imagine sending a text message to someone and knowing with absolute certainty that it will not even reach their phone until sometime tomorrow, and that whatever they type back will not reach you until the day after that. Now imagine that the message you sent was not a casual check-in, but a single, carefully worded instruction meant to physically alter the internal wiring of a machine you built decades ago, a machine you cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot retrieve if something goes wrong. That is the actual working reality for the team managing this decision right now. Not a dramatic exaggeration built for a headline, but the literal physics of trying to operate hardware sitting 16 billion miles away. It is worth sitting with what is actually being risked here, because the danger is not abstract. Changing multiple onboard systems simultaneously, instead of the slow, one step at a time approach NASA has used for most of the last decade, is inherently riskier, specifically because there is less room to catch a problem before it compounds. If the new lower power heating devices fail to keep the thruster fuel lines warm enough, even briefly, that fuel could freeze solid, and a spacecraft that can no longer fire its thrusters cannot keep its antenna precisely aimed at Earth, that would not just end the LECP question, it would very likely end the entire mission's ability to communicate at all, regardless of how much power the generators still had left to give. Every one of these decisions, at this distance, on hardware this old, is close to irreversible the moment it is made. Consider what the actual working conditions look like for the engineers making that call. There's no dashboard to refresh, no live indicator ticking upward as a command makes its way outward. A team sends a precisely worded sequence of instructions, confirms it left the antenna correctly, and then does nothing but wait for the better part of a day before any signal confirming receipt could possibly arrive. If something in that confirmation looks even slightly off, the next step requires composing a new sequence, sending it, and waiting again another day before finding out whether the correction landed the way it was intended to. This is not a process that rewards impatience, and it never has been, not once across 49 years of managing this exact spacecraft. Everyone involved in this decision has spent their career, or in some cases their entire career up to this point, working inside that same rhythm, a rhythm built entirely around distances so large that even the fastest possible message still arrives as old news by the time it gets here. That patience is not new to this mission either. It has been tested before, and it has held. In November 2023, Voyager 1 began transmitting nothing but scrambled, unreadable data, the result of a single memory chip inside its onboard computer that had degraded after decades of exposure to cosmic radiation. For 5 months, engineers had no way to read anything meaningful coming back from the spacecraft, working through the same brutal day-long communication delay to slowly diagnose a problem they could not see directly, testing theories one painstakingly slow exchange at a time. They eventually found a fix, relocating the corrupted section of code to other working memory elsewhere on the spacecraft. And by May 2024, Voyager 1 was transmitting clean science data again. That same team, having already pulled this exact machine back from what could easily have been a permanent silence once before, is the team currently deciding whether to attempt the Big Bang on Voyager 1 this month. The track record does not guarantee success this time, but it is part of why they are willing to attempt something this ambitious on hardware this old in the first place. There is a specific date sitting just beyond this decision that makes the stakes even sharper. If the Big Bang buys the time engineers are hoping for, Voyager 1 has a real shot at reaching its 50th anniversary in space in September of 2027, still transmitting, still gathering something. 50 years is not a round number chosen for sentimental reasons alone. It represents nearly 10 times longer than the mission's original planned lifespan. A spacecraft designed for a 5-year assignment now closing in on a full half-century of continuous operation in the single most hostile environment any human-built object has ever occupied. The engineers currently working this problem were, in many cases, not yet born when Voyager 1 left Earth, inheriting a machine and a set of operating procedures from a generation of scientists who designed it, never expecting anyone would still be managing its power budget 5 decades later. Whether it reaches that milestone with 1 working science instrument, 2, or none at all, transmitting nothing but a bare confirmation that it is still alive, may come down in real part to whatever is happening with this exact maneuver right now, this month. It helps to put that 50-year number into some kind of human perspective. A person born the same month Voyager 1 launched would, by the time of that anniversary, be approaching their own 50th birthday, having lived through the entire rise of home computing, the internet, smartphones, and everything that followed, while this one machine kept moving in a straight line through the dark, entirely unaffected by any of it, still reporting back the same basic kind of information it was built to gather in 1977, just from a location in space nobody at the time could have reasonably imagined it would ever actually reach. There is no other human-built object with anything close to that kind of operational history, still functioning, still in active two-way communication with the people who built it, after this many decades in continuous operation. And even while this specific decision hangs unresolved, the spacecraft keeps adding new distance, new milestones, without waiting for anyone's permission. Later this year, in November, Voyager 1 is projected to cross a distance of exactly 1 light day from Earth, a point so far away that a signal moving at light speed needs a full 24 hours just to complete the trip in either direction. No human-made object has ever been that far from home while still talking to us. Send a command on a Monday morning, and you would have no way of confirming it even reached the spacecraft until Tuesday morning, and no way of knowing whether it worked until Wednesday. Whatever the Big Bang decides for Voyager 1's remaining instruments, that milestone is coming regardless. One more record added to a mission that was never supposed to still be setting them, arriving at a speed of roughly 38,000 miles an hour, adding tens of thousands of additional miles to the gap between us with every single hour that passes, whether the power gamble happening right now succeeds or fails. There is something worth holding on to in the fact that this story genuinely has not finished yet. Most of what reaches you about space exploration arrives already resolved, a discovery already confirmed, a mission already concluded, a headline already written well after the fact, packaged neatly with a beginning, a middle, and an end before you ever hear about it. And this is not that. Somewhere between Voyager 2's test results in June and whatever is happening with Voyager 1 this July, a small team of engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory is working through exactly the kind of patient, high-stakes process that has defined this entire mission for 49 years, 1 command, 1 agonizing wait measured in the better part of a day, 1 small piece of returning telemetry at a time. Think about how strange that actually is, if you stop to sit with it. Somewhere out past the edge of everything any telescope on Earth has ever directly measured, a decision has already been made. The command has already been sent, or is about to be. The spacecraft has either already responded or is in the process of doing so, its thruster lines either holding steady at the right temperature or not, its antenna either still locked precisely onto our tiny distant planet, or drifting slightly out of alignment in a way that would take weeks to fully diagnose and correct. None of that is uncertain in any real physical sense. It has already happened, or is happening at this exact moment, fixed and settled somewhere in the vast gap between Voyager 1 and Earth. The only thing that remains genuinely unknown is what we, here, have not been told yet, simply because the news of it has not finished making its own long, patient journey home. Whether the answer that finally arrives is the one engineers are hoping for, or the one they have long expected as the more likely outcome given how old this hardware has become, it is already decided somewhere out past the edge of everything we can currently observe. It just has not reached us yet. And when it does, whatever it says, the team that has spent 49 years learning how to work inside exactly this kind of silence will be ready to read it and to decide, calmly and carefully, what to try next. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe and check back, because this is one chapter of the Voyager mission that is genuinely still being written as you watch this.